Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 2024 preseason power rankings, where we're hitting my favorite team in the NFL, the Miami Dolphins. It is coming out on my channel since it isn't even, so we didn't plan that. That's just how it happened. This is a team where we have to find out, can they finally get over the hump? Because it's no doubt they're talented. It's no doubt they have some damn good coaching, some damn good X's and O's. It's really, can this team finally go out and win a playoff game? Can this team finally do something meaningful outside of the regular season when it gets to December, when it gets to January, right? And we have yet to see that, and that's what you're hoping to see this next season. But as of right now, it's an unknown.
This is definitely the highest floor team that we've seen.
Yes.
However, to me, right, a little bit less optimistic about them. I feel very confident that we know what this team is in terms of
Yes.
ability to win down the line. And I'm afraid that they're lacking in that area. And am I basing that purely off of last year? Yes. But what changes did they make to really prevent that from being the case? Right? They extended the same guys and kept the same core in place. The only problem is this same core that they kept in place will just do the same thing over and over, it feels like. At least that's my perception of it. The Dolphins are a team with a lot of confidence, right? We're talking about their culture and head coach. And they play with that confidence. But when teams take the fight to them, they struggle to punch back. The
I mean,
organization
the
seems
team
to be.
is we say it a lot. We say it a lot in the Dolphins fandom, right? This is a team that beats bad teams. They will go beat the bad teams. They'll beat
Yep.
teams that are worse than them.
They don't get upset.
They
It
don't
doesn't
get
happen.
upset. The upsets do not happen against the Miami Dolphins, but they continue to face these top teams, these top quarterbacks, and keep falling short every time in those biggest moments.
The organization seems to be complacent with that. That. If I was a Dolphins fan, that's what I'd be frustrated about. The organization does not seem to care to make the moves to prevent that from being the case. That would really piss me off. And I'm basing that off of their decisions in free agency, the draft, and just straight up player contracts. They seem completely fine making it to the playoffs every year and losing in the first week.
Now, I have much more of an issue with the draft side of it. I thought this year's free agency was overall pretty good. I do think the team got better in free agency considering our circumstances, but we'll get to that sooner rather than later. Let's move on to head coach and culture. Talk about Mike McDaniel.
Well, I
Talk
mean
about
this
it.
as part of the head coaching culture. To me, I think
Oh,
that complacency and
right.
this confident bravado of this team is part of that culture. But then you want to get over to the head coach. The head coach, I don't think, is much of a culture guy. I wouldn't say he is.
I would disagree a little bit just because the team does love him and the team
Yeah,
plays hard for
yeah.
him, and it's a different kind of culture. But he's not one of the top culture guys in the league. No, what you're getting more with McDaniel, X's and O's. This is one
Yes.
of the best offensive minds this game has to offer. He was a run game coordinator in San Francisco, moves on over here, and he's changed what was the worst offense in football to one of the best, if
Yep.
not potentially the best. Like, that's what we're looking at with this team.
And I don't want to sound like the McDaniel hater because I'm not. I love what he does schematically. It's awesome. Some of the ways he motions players. He started a trend last year. The short out motion. Oh my god, teams loved it. Right?
The sharp motion.
The
We love
sharp
it.
motion. Yeah, exactly. Teams love doing that. It became a trend all over the league. And he does a lot of stuff like that that's really unique and crazy and it works really well. And schematically, he is awesome. However, I do think he's a little bit stubborn. Not a little bit. He is very stubborn in terms of how he runs this team, both from a team building standpoint and also play calling and what he designs these crazy schemes in order to do. He has his bread and butter, and he refuses to stray off of that. And that bothers me a lot. And I think that's part of the reason that this team is going to be hard stuck every year. They're in purgatory. Playoffs lost. Playoffs lost. I think they're going to be stuck in that spot for a while.
I would hope not. I do have a bit more confidence in him and this team, but yes, no, he's very stubborn.
Yeah.
We keep seeing it every year where the outside zone's not working,
Uh-huh.
and he can't run inside because for one, he won't call it,
Uh-huh.
and two, we can't, which we'll get to. But another thing is, it's a very one-dimensional team, unfortunately, when it comes to throwing the ball for the most part, because this team wants to target the middle of the field. That's what Tua is best at. That's what we're best at. And there are times we get exposed for that as well, when teams are just like, cool, we're just going to take away the middle portion of the field. And then your offense, we're literally going to sit outside on a outside zone. And then we're going to sit in the middle of the field. And it's like, oh no, you've beat us,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
exactly, right? It's crazy. And it sucks because they have such nice designs in terms of being able to get blockers like for something like counter, but they never do it. And it's almost like, how many different variants of outside zone are you going to have before you finally just run counter or power or inside zone?
ISO, anything.
Yeah, right? It doesn't really make sense, right? It is a rhythm passing game with quick over the middle passes, and they are great using motion to get receivers free releases and, reveal coverages. That's awesome, right? It's sick. But when that stuff isn't working and the outside zone game isn't working, what are you gonna do? And I don't know what they dial up after that, because even when they're losing big, they don't try this other stuff. And I don't get it. And I find it so interesting because you look at the Shanahan tree. And to me, the most interesting thing about the Shanahan tree is how it started with, oh yeah, outside zone's awesome. We're going to run a lot of outside zone. And then motioning wide receivers and getting them the ball, jet sweeps, that stuff. And, over time, it evolved more and more. And that's why all of these coaches, McVay, Kevin O'Connell, they run different variants of the original Mike Shanahan offense. And over time, these adaptations keep getting made. Mike McDaniel is running that original Mike Shanahan offense with a lot of interesting wrinkles, but he doesn't run different concepts. He sticks to the same concepts with different wrinkles, and that isn't enough to win a Super Bowl. I don't even know if it's enough to win more than one playoff game.
And can I ask if that's partly because of who they have at quarterback? Especially when it comes to the passing game, specifically.
Well, in the passing game, yeah, obviously. We're not talking about the running game. That's not overly affected by the quarterback.
Yeah.
Do I feel like that's because of the... yes, the quarterback has a limited skill set. And I think he does restrict the playbook. And you might be right, but you're not going to try a single, outbreaker, really? I mean, it seems like a lot of teams are running their entire offense outside the hashes. And they refuse to do it for full quarters. Right? Yeah. It's really... I mean... It could be a Tua thing. It seems to be a Tua thing. But, I mean, this is an NFL quarterback. And he can't throw a single outbreaking route. Come on. That's a little bit ridiculous. Is he not a great outbreaking route thrower? Sure, yeah, he isn't very good at it. However, again, he's in the NFL. He can do it. All right?
He can.
Maybe not a lot, but you could do it every once in a while. I have watched them go full quarters without throwing a single ball outside the hashes.
Yep.
And that is a really bad thing because you become predictable. I don't care how many wrinkles you show, how many different bells and whistles you put around it. It is the same, concept, and it can be defended the same way.
But let's move off of this now, and let's move in to this offense. Frank Smith is the OC. This is Mike McDaniel's offense. This is Mike McDaniel's play calls. This is what's going to happen. And as we move to the quarterback, who we reference, Tua Tagovailoa, I really like Tua. It sucks because I made a couple videos on my TikTok this offseason talking about how I wouldn't have paid Tua that much money, and I wouldn't have, and I still stand by that. That doesn't mean I don't think Tua's not a good QB. I don't think he's quite top 10, but I think he's top 15, and I think that's a great quarterback to have. That's probably where I'd put him, around the top 15 range, maybe a little lower, depending on the day, depending on the weather.
His skill set is really, really unique, right?
Yes,
and that's not a bad thing, right? Because the fact is, right, there's probably 3 quarterbacks I think execute the quick passing game better than him in the entire NFL.
And that's a maybe. I think that's a maybe.
Yeah. Well, you got Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's the only one I feel confident saying executes the quick passing game better. Besides him, then we get into Aaron Rodgers as a maybe,
CJ Stroud is a maybe.
CJ Stroud as a maybe. But
But
yeah,
like if you're talking about an anticipatory thrower, there might not
mhm,
be another one, better one in football.
yeah. And his release is
Tua,
insanely quick.
it's insane. It's
Mhm.
a beauty to watch on tape, especially from the end zone view when you
Yep.
see how tight of the windows he's able to do. And
Mhm.
it's not just him sitting. Like I don't think Tua reads the field exceptionally well, mind you. I
No,
don't.
he doesn't.
However, I do think he does a really good job using his eyes and maneuvering defenders where they need to be so he can put a ball on a spot. That might not be another quarterback in football who can do that as good as Tua,
Mhm.
and that's a unique and valuable skill set to have. Is there a limited ceiling with Tua? Yes, there is. He's not somebody who's overwhelmingly great again throwing outside the numbers. This isn't an overwhelming extender, even that great of an extender. Although apparently he's lost some weight and he looks a bit twitchier and quicker in what's it called in camp, which he was before he got hurt at Bama, mind you. He
Mhm.
was quicker and twitchier, so maybe you see that if Tua can add an extension portion to his game at any point, that some good things will happen. But we have to see
Mhm.
that. But like, yeah, when it comes to executing the quick passing game, trusting the offense is another thing that Tua does
Yes.
so well in the sense of I think this play is going to work. I'm going to put this ball here. And
Mhm.
some guys have hit the door. Some guys can hit the doorknob. Tua can hit the keyhole. He
Yeah.
can fit that ball where it needs to be. And I think Tua is a damn good quarterback. Now, would I have paid him the money they're giving him? No, I wouldn't have. I think that's a ridiculous amount of money.
He restricts the playbook too much. You're paying too
He
many other
does.
players to pay him to.
Yeah, I
Right.
completely agree with that. And I would have gone if we could get him for a little bit less, I would have been fine with it. But I'm not super. I thought they would give him a longer one, which I'm happy they didn't. I think the 4-year contract makes it better. But yeah, I wouldn't have paid him that much money. I hope. And now it comes down to the fact of you better go out there and win a playoff game this year, Tua. You have the money. You have a great team surrounding you. You better go out and win a playoff
But
game.
if he doesn't, you're still paying the guy. And if
Yep.
he doesn't, you still got to pay all these other players. And that's the thing that really bothers me. From a team building perspective, they've set themselves up very poorly. Very
Yes.
poorly. When you're paying all those other guys, you can't also pay a quarterback that is restricting your offense. That is how I look at this. However, we're not here to talk about team building. We're here to talk about this current roster. And the fact is, Tua is the Achilles heel. He is. Like that's the reality here. And he's very good at what he's good at, but because his game is kind of niche, he is the Achilles heel of the offense, no matter how good he is. Mike White, Skylar Thompson, those are fine backups to have there. But the thing I really want to hit on now is this receiver core because it really helps Tua. It really
Yes, it
helps Tua.
does. It does. It's
And
maybe the best duo in football.
yeah, but now they also made it into a little bit of a trio. I don't know how you feel about current OBJ, but I still kind of like current
I I,
OBJ.
li- I like Kern OBJ as a wide receiver 3. I'll tell you that.
Yup, exactly, exactly. And listen, this is a deep receiver core, but first let's go over these, especially top two. Tyreek
Yeah.
Hill, his speed, along with his body control, makes him such a dynamic threat. We see so many receivers enter the league just off of their speed. John Ross is an example. Corey Coleman was an example. There's a lot of guys like him who are very speedy, and because of that, they get drafted early. But there's a big reason why those guys didn't work out, and Tyreek Hill is building a Hall of Fame case, right?
Yes.
That reason? Because Tyreek Hill isn't just speed. He has the body control. He has great release packages that make him difficult to press. I think that is the key thing. And he's also a great route runner. He has some drops, but besides that, very well-rounded game with the speed to really take him over the edge.
And it comes down to he's also built like a running back.
Uh,
He's not a skinny wide receiver. He's a broad, big wide receiver who's tough to bring down after the catch because of that speed and because of that size. So, he's not only one of the best receivers in football right now, he's one of the best weapons in NFL history. Like truly, with the mix of his speed and everything that he does, one of the best overall weapons the league's ever seen. He is an absolute animal. He's going to have a big season no matter what, no matter who's throwing on the ball. But then next to him, you have a great young receiver, man. Like one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver two in the league. Like within Jalen Waddle. That's just how it is. He, again, speedy guy to his former teammate at Bama. And I don't know about you, I was huge on Jalen Waddle. I thought Jalen Waddle was going to be really good coming out of the draft. I thought he was more than just a speed guy, and he's proved that. He's another person with kind of not even drop issues, just like weirdly doesn't use his hands to catch sometimes. It'll be a high point ball or on the run, and he'll just try and use his chest. And sometimes he drops the ball. And that's not fun. But outside of that, fantastic route runner.
Yep.
Really, really good route runner. And when you mix that with his speed, is almost impossible to cover one-on-one. He has great ball tracking, and he's awesome after the catch. Like, he is the whole package at receiver, man.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. Of course, the after catch ability is something that shines a lot when you're executing so many short passes. But man, he can extend the field because of his speed. He is a great route runner too. I'm a big Jalen Waddle guy. Don't get me wrong. Do not get me wrong. I'm a big fan of him. The same way I'm a big fan of Tyreek. I am really excited to go over the new addition to the receiver core though. OBJ as a veteran. We talked about a lot of quick passes, and it sucks they brought in another guy that's really like that's his game. It is the quick passing game. I feel like people nowadays have kind of a false interpretation of what OBJ is, of what his game was built on. The fact is, OBJ, he did all of his work over the middle. He wasn't this absurd vertical threat, right? He was one of the best in-breaking route runners in the league when receiver play might have been at its peak.
And I still remember so many plays of him just catching a slant and him taking that thing right up the field.
It's the after-catch ability, and it's the ability to separate quickly. That's what he does. It isn't, oh, yeah, did you see his one-handed catch? Okay, yeah, that was great. That's not what his game is. His game is in-breaking route runner, get him the ball, he makes a play after the catch. That's what his game is, and I feel like people really interpret that incorrectly, and I feel like people forget that's still what his game is. With the Ravens, they didn't. He was kind of misutilized. Like that's the reality.
He was used as a vertical threat, and it was a little weird.
Yeah, and I also think there were a lot of plays where he was open, and Lamar just didn't see him. And I think that's kind of a knock on Lamar. We're gonna get to Lamar eventually, don't you worry. But OBJ is a player I still think is very, very dynamic, even at his current age. But then you got some depth here, right? River Craycraft is a guy. I know you're a pretty big Craycraft guy.
So yeah. I like Craycraft as this he's a slot receiver. He's not he's not a bad athlete, not a great one, but just a really, really nuanced route runner, has great hands. I like Craycraft to be on this team. He probably makes it's either between him or Braxton Berrios to make it for them, but I want to touch on Malik Washington because he's a guy we drafted this year. He's a rookie. I believe he's getting a lot of reps with the first team with OBJ out. I love his fit in this offense. Malik Washington, if you don't know who he is, coming out of Virginia, small guy. He is 5'8", 191 pounds. Well, 5'8", I mean, small in the sense of height. 5'8", but he's 191 pounds, kind of built like a running back there. But he plays a lot bigger than that. He would happily go over people in contested catches. And the thing about him that is such a good fit in this offense is he's also just phenomenal over the middle of the field. And he'll hang on the catches while getting pummeled to the ground. Like, he is a very physical slot kind of receiver, and he's been getting a lot of reps with this first team with OBJ out. And I fully expect him to have a pretty big role until OBJ comes off the PUP list. And even after that, I think he's going to be a pretty big contributor as a rookie to this team as a pass catcher. It's like a wide receiver 4/3. But the same as a lot of those slot kind of receivers. Malik, Braxton Berrios, River Craycraft, Braylon Sanders is that as of right now. So they have a type. We say it every time. Team has a type, and that's quick separators over the middle of the field that can hang on the football.
Yeah, of course, and there's more, right? Anthony Schwartz, Willie Snead also do that exact same thing, right?
Yes.
I mean, speedy guys, right? That's what they're here for, their speed. And, they like that, and that's cool, but...
There is a guy also here named Eric Ezukanma, who is kind of an experiment we took the first year McDaniel had his draft. I don't know. He's really an unknown. He's made the by the way, there's a couple guys that I'm going to say are unknowns on this team that probably make the roster because they've had Mike McDaniel in chokehold for the last forever. Not so much with Ezukanma because he's still on a rookie contract, but he's supposed to be this dynamic after catch receiver. And the only time you saw him on the field before he would get hurt is he'd take a lot of jet sweeps or he'd get the ball quick on a screen to get him after the catch. So he's a complete unknown at this point because he hasn't been healthy enough.
Yeah, sorry. Once again, the dog is doing dog things.
You're good.
I'm hoping this time it's because my sister's home, so we can stop bugging me. I'm gonna grab another tissue while I can.
You're good.
Okay. Alright. Okay, continue.
So, I forget where I was with Azukama. I'm actually going to start the Azukama thing over. I'll just make it a little simpler.
Okay.
Azukama is this supposed to be run after catch threat out of Texas Tech and Mike McDaniel's first year in the draft. Keeps getting hurt. We don't see a lot of him, but he keeps making the roster, and the team always has a little rave about him or their design plays for him. So he's here. He's, again, kind of an unknown as of this point. We'll see if he could do anything this season. I'm not overly confident considering the receivers we have in this room, but you give it a mention.
Yeah, no, for sure. It is a deep, deep receiver room. Absolutely. Then we move over to... I want to save the running backs for last, I think.
That's fine.
Before the offensive line, obviously, we're wrapping up with that. The tight end / fullback. We're going to get to the fullback, don't you worry. I don't know how you feel about Jonnu Smith. I think in a Shanahanian scheme, you could do some interesting stuff. Because this is like the Deebo Samuel of tight ends, I want to say.
Correct.
Because he is such a dynamic after-catch tight end.
And we haven't had that once during Mike McDaniel's tenure. Mm-hmm. If the starter is Durham Smythe as of right now, maybe the most white bread, boring tight end you've ever seen in your life, Durham Smythe. He can block well. He can catch all right. He's like I'm a Durham Smythe guy. I'm a Durham Smythe enjoyer. Okay. However, he's not the most exciting tight end in the world, and Jonnu Smith is much more of that receiving threat, run after catch threat that McDaniel's never had. We've never once had that kind of player in the tight end room. But we'll see how he's used. Maybe he's used even as a big slot. I would love to see that happen. Mm-hmm. But I do hope, because having a dynamic tight end is so important in the Shanahan style of offense. And we have never had that. We'll see if Jonnu Smith can do that. I think he can. I think it's going to be a really good fit. But outside of that, I got to explain this tight end room because it's always a conundrum. It's always been a conundrum since he's been here. Julian Hill is one of the better blocking tight ends in football. He's a physical downhill blocker. I expect him to make the roster. He's been getting his catches in practice. He has a couple catches during the regular season last year, but much more of an inline blocking tight end, very good at it. Jody Fortson's here. I wanted to move to number 80. Dolphins fans know who Tanner Conner is. You probably don't know who Tanner Conner is. Tanner Conner was an undrafted free agent in 2022. He's 6'3", 232 tight end out of Idaho State. He's made the roster every year he's been on this team, and he has played maybe 6 snaps. Mike McDaniel has and part of it is because he's been injured too. Mike McDaniel has like a vision for Tanner Conner. I don't know what it is. I have no idea what it could be. But he has a vision for him, and he keeps making this roster. So
it's all fun and games until he's the next George Kittle. That's all.
He might be, dude. He might be. That's the thing, because he's a speedy tight end receiving threat. Apparently, the first snap Tanner Conner ever had, it went through his hands and it got picked. Okay, so I don't know, dude.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I was just gonna go on about Jonnu Smith and Durham Smythe. Like those are the guys. Like I was like,
yeah, those are the guys.
Those are the guys. Yeah,
but I know Dolphins fans will appreciate me talking about Julian Hill and Tanner Conner.
There's another guy that I choose to hit on here because when teams have fullbacks, I do them with the tight ends. Alec Ingold might be the best utility fullback in football. The only thing is Kyle Juszczyk is kind of just a stud. And that makes it tough.
They're both studs. They're both fantastic players, man.
Besides Juszczyk, he definitely is the best utility guy at the fullback position. Someone that will catch passes, someone that will vulture touchdowns from Raheem Mostert. You know, fantasy players hate him. even when he was playing with Josh Jacobs, fantasy players hated him, and fantasy players still will hate him, but still the Dolphins love him. McDaniel loves him.
And for good reason. He's a fantastic player.
Mm-hmm.
He's a fullback you'll see run wheels 30 yards up the field and he's catching a pass. Like you'll see, he's a fullback you'll see hurdle people. Like that is the type of athlete Alec Gingle is. And he's a fantastic blocker. He's a fantastic blocker in the run game, and he's a fantastic blocker in the sense of like he's somebody who's going to run 30 yards downfield with the receiver and go block somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's just a fantastic fullback, man. One of the best in football.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. His game is built more on the utility aspect.
Yep.
He's a good blocker. There's better blockers, but he's here more to get the ball, whether that's through the handoff or through the passing game. Really, really useful player in that way. Then we get to the running backs, where all of them are the same exact player.
Yep, except for Jeff Wilson and Chris Brooks, but they're the same player, so it works out.
You got Raheem Mostert, you got Devin Achane, you got Jalen Wright, all of which are really fast. Now on to the offensive line.
So Raheem Mostert, he's also a good pass catcher. It's one thing I don't think he gets enough credit for is he's a damn good pass catcher out of the backfield. He's fast, really good at reading inside zone. He did it with San Francisco. He's doing it here. It's working out well. Now, Achane's different. Achane's not only a fast runner, he's also compact enough to where like he's a guy who's like breaking tackles. Like he can break a tackle if he gets hit it.
Is it that, or were his broken tackle rates heavily inflated by the worst display of defensive football I've ever seen against Denver?
So that's part of it, right? It always is. However, even like against Buffalo, like he was a handful against Buffalo. That team is having trouble tackling him. He's just a tough tackle. He is. He's got a very, very low center of gravity, and he's also got really powerful legs. And he's gotten bigger this offseason. Maybe that comes at the cost of a little speed, but believe me, he was plenty fast. He's got enough speed, right? I mean, we forget. Achane might have led the league in rushing yards if he didn't get hurt. He was the leader in rushing yards after missing 3 weeks, and then he got hurt. You know, like he could be a really special player, and I think he's a really special runner, not only in the sense of his speed and his ability to stay up, but I think he's got fantastic vision as well. So I'm a huge Achane guy. I love Mostert too, but I think Achane's the top dog of this offense this next season. I think it'd be ridiculous for him not to be. And then we get to Jalen Wright. And I don't like Jalen Wright very much. I didn't like him pre-draft at least. He's a Dolphin now. Of course I'm going to like him regardless. But pre-draft, I mean, this guy played at Tennessee. As you said, speed. He's a pretty big back, and he's really fast.
And he doesn't run like he's big, but
he doesn't run like he's big. He's big. He doesn't run like he's big. And he has the worst vision. He's some of the worst vision you'll see, man. He cannot read a hole for his life. And
I mean, the good thing is he could get the big plays when he does run through the right lane.
Yes.
The only thing is, so can Raheem Mostert. And so can Achane.
And we have way more pressing needs outside of running back that you could have gotten in the fourth round. Fourth round's high.
Insane idea. What if they got like a inside runner? What if
they got? What if they got a power back?
Yeah. What if? Imagine.
Now, they do like Jeff Wilson a lot. Again, another former San Francisco guy. This is the San Francisco Dolphins. And then you've got Chris Brooks as well, who was a rookie last year, another big runner that they like.
Is Jeff Wilson really a power runner, though?
Yeah, I would say so.
I would say he's more powerful than Mostert and Achane.
He's a downhill guy for sure. At least with the Dolphins, he hasn't really been elusive, yada yada. He just kind of he goes forward. But Chris Brooks is this team's power guy. He's coming out of BYU. He was a rookie last season. He showed some flashes. I expect him to make the roster. He's 6 foot, 230 pounds. Like, he's a big dude. And he should be this team's power back. But he's kind of the team's only power back outside of what you think of Jeff Wilson.
Yeah. I mean, again, maybe I'm thinking too much about 49ers Jeff Wilson. But I think about Jeff Wilson. I wouldn't say he's like completely scat, but like he's not. I wouldn't label him as a downhill guy, at least based off his 49er.
I would say with the Dolphins he has been, but I would even say Raheem Mostert has developed into that too, though, because he wasn't. Mostert's put on weight compared to what he was with and it's come at the cost of some speed, but he runs with a lot more power now. He's a tough tackle, and it's really, if he can stay healthy, he's going to be good. But I think Devon Achane is the guy in this room. I do. I think he's a little too dynamic for him not to be.
So now let's move over to the Dolphins' offensive line. Yeah. This is I feel like we've been pretty negative about this team.
We have been.
It's out of love.
It is out of love.
It is out of love. Like this
because you see all the great on this roster.
Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle being there alone make everything really good.
And we say Mostert and Achane is like, oh, they're the same player. They're still two really good players.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
And then you look at the offensive line. I like the tackles when healthy.
Tackles are good when healthy. Teron Armstead, when he's healthy, he's a damn good tackle, but he hasn't been. And I love Austin Jackson because he was really bad for 3 years.
Yes.
He was a really bad tackle for 3 years. And he's developed into a good one. Like, he's a good right tackle.
I love how, for me, it was Austin Jackson was really bad. Then he got paid a lot of money midseason, and I was just like, no way. And then I watched the film, and I was like, oh, look at that. That was how that went for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and he is good now.
He is. Really he is.
Technical, solid pass blocker. Better in the run game.
He's able to prevent defenders from sealing the edge. When you're only running outside zone off tackle, you really only care about the tackles.
Yep.
Hence why you look at their depth chart, you look at the players on the interior, it's pretty clear they only care about the tackles.
I never thought there would be a day, at least early on in Jackson's career, where I'd say Austin Jackson is the most consistent and best lineman on our team because, Teron Armstead gets hurt. So.
Yep. I mean, when Teron Armstead, when healthy, is still really good. He is.
Absolutely.
The only thing is he does go down often. Patrick Paul is someone they drafted. How do you feel here? I don't like the fit, really.
I think you don't like the fit because of the scheme they ran over where in Houston where he's from and everything. I also just think he's athletic enough to be taught to be a good edge sealant, outside zone edge sealant like that.
I get it. His combine showed nice athleticism. Oh baby, but you watch and maybe it was the scheme he ran in Houston, but you look, he wasn't great at moving on film.
Yeah, but I do think that's part of the scheme on Houston because they didn't ask to move a lot.
Yeah, that's fair. But
so I think a part of it is not being used to it and is being taught. But that's the thing with Paul. He's probably not starting at any point this season. I'd be a little surprised because we have a swing tackle in Kendall Lamb, who's one of the better backup swing tackles in the league. So I think they're taking Paul as this developmental guy, and that's good because Paul's can develop into something. He's 6'7", 335 pounds.
His good reps are good.
Yes.
Right. The anchor is there. He has strong hands. But yeah, I'm not going to lie. Kendall Lamb was someone who, on film last year, when he came in, when Teron Armstead was down, he was good.
Absolutely.
Right?
He was good.
He was kind of someone I kind of had as an afterthought, just looking back at my notes. But now looking back at the depth chart, Kendall Lamb was
solid. One of the best. He's one of the better swing backup tackles in the league. You're not mad when Kendall Lamb's starting. You're okay, we can do that. So I think Paul was one of the better picks, if not, not the best pick, because I think Blake Washington was good value, and another guy on defense, which we'll get to, was really good value. But Paul was one of the better picks of this draft. I feel good about it as a future beyond Teron Armstead. Yeah. But then we move off the tackles and move to this interior line. It's bad. It's not good. It's not a good interior line. Now we've discussed this. How important is the interior line, at least when it comes to this is outside zone. And this quick passing game, the ball's coming out so quick, right? It's not going to be that huge. There'll be issues. But the problem with this team is that they're banking on, we'll just always run outside zone.
what happens when you need to switch it up? You
inside
now
zone.
don't have the ability because you built your team entirely thinking we'll just always do what we're good at. No team has ever won a Super Bowl just doing what they're good at. Like, ever. It doesn't happen. You have to have the change up. And the Dolphins don't. And this is example number 347 with this team of them not having that versatility. Because
And this
I don't trust Isaiah Wynn. I don't trust Aaron Brewer. I don't trust Robert Jones. I don't
That's what
trust
I say
Jack
when
Driscoll.
not the starter right now. It's Liam Eichenberg.
Yeah,
And
I was just about to say I
say
don't trust Liam
Liam
Eichenberg.
Eichenberg is maybe the worst Dolphins player I've ever watched. Like he's
Yeah.
so bad.
I don't trust much here, right? I don't.
So I don't trust any of it on the interior really. I am excited to see how Aaron Brewer performs in this zone scheme because he is athletic, smaller guy, and he was a good run blocker with Tennessee last year.
Mm-hmm.
My issue is again when it comes to inside zone, I think he's very good. And two, maybe the worst starting pass blocking center in the league last year. He was awful last year as a pass blocker, and that's shown up in camp. We'll see how this goes. It's a definite downgrade from Connor Williams. It's 100% a downgrade. It's a big downgrade, I would say.
And like I wasn't even big on Robert Hunt. I was not impressed by him. I really wasn't. But it's even worse now.
It's Robert Jones.
Yeah. It's so again. Robert Hunt got way overpaid. Like I think he's one of the most overpaid players in football because his good reps were just the ball getting out quick. But oh my God, it's again they limit the margin of error. But when you can't win in January, this is why. This right here is why. Because you might have the worst interior offensive line in the sport.
And it comes down to, unfortunately, their first round pick. There were a lot of good interior linemen available when I really wanted. Now, I think the pick looks better considering what's happened this offseason
With Shaq Barrett.
with the edge group,
Mm-hmm.
which I think the pick's better. Absolutely. At the time, I was pissed. I was like, dude, Graham Barton was right there. Jackson Powers Johnson was right there. Whoever you wanted on the interior was right there.
JPJ would have been an amazing pick.
Yes.
In this scheme, that would have been unbelievable. What McDaniel would be able to do, oh my Lord. But no, they wanted third down specialist at best McGee in Chop Robinson.
Yeah, so we'll get to him, but this interior offensive line stinks. It's bad, and if this team does not win a playoff game, it's going to be because of this unit.
Yep. Okay, so now let's look at the offensive player of the year, offensive rookie of the year, superlatives, that stuff. Offensive player of the year, we definitely have the same guy, no?
I don't think we do.
Well, I have Tyreek.
I'm going with Devon Achane. I think Devon Achane's going to go.
Wow.
I think he's going to be. I know Tyreek Hill is the better player. Absolutely, I don't disagree with that. But what we saw from Achane, if he's able to stay healthy, he might lead.
That's the thing. But I feel like there's some players in this league that are so good when healthy, that it's almost too good to be true, and that's why they can't stay healthy.
To be fair, we've only seen it. It was his rookie season. He doesn't have a history of being injured in college, right? Like it's just his rookie season. I feel like it's okay to assume he's gonna be all right. We'll see. This isn't a bold prediction because Tyreek Hill is on this team. And Tyreek Hill is gonna be amazing, absolutely. Yeah. But like again, Devon Achane was that good when healthy last year. Like he would have probably led the league in rushing yards if he was healthy last year.
He averaged 6.8 yards per carry, something ridiculous.
It was ridiculous. Yeah. So that's my pick is Devon Achane.
And then offensive rookie of the year, this one.
I'm going with Malik Washington.
You are.
I am.
I'm sorry to break it with you. I went with a player that I hate in Jalen Wright because I think it will be a committee. But there's going to be a game where they're up by 50, and then they put in the backup running back, the same way that A-Chain popped off. And it's going to be Jalen Wright, and he's going to go for 300 yards. And everything we're saying about A-Chain right now, people are going to be saying about Jalen Wright before he gets replaced by another rookie running back that's very fast that they draft too early, right? I think it's just going to be an infinite loop. That's really how I'm feeling here.
Mine's going to be Malik Washington. I think he's going to contribute. I think he's going to be a really, really underrated player this next season. So it's my pick. Do you have your? Well, we definitely both have our 12th man on here.
Yeah, it's
Alec Ingold. It's Alec Ingold.
It's got to be. I hope he hurdles someone again. That's hype. That happened. Was that 2 years ago?
Yes.
That was such a sick photo. Every year there's like one like photo of the year. This year I think it's the Will Levis like doing like the Elway helicopter against the Colts.
Yeah.
Right? And then like the year before that, I would probably say it was the Alec Ingold, right? Every year there's like one photo that's like, oh my God. And the fact that one year it was a fullback tells me all I need to know. Alec Ingold, he's a stud, right? He's a stud in terms of ability to make plays after the catch, just making catches. When you're so focused on Tyreek Hill, and you're so focused on the run game with Devon Achane and Jalen Waddle and all this stuff, it's very easy to undermine the fullback.
Yes.
And that's how Ingold gets his work.
Do you have your X factor?
No. I do not.
Neither do I.
All right. So now we move over to the defensive scheme with Anthony Weaver.
Is this the last?
I was just about to ask that.
No, we have one more, and it's the Ravens.
Yeah, that would be Zach Orr.
That'd be Zach Orr. So
Anthony
this is
Weaver,
the second to last of the Mike McDonald disciples in the league.
We only have to do this rant 2 more times.
2 more times.
So, for those of you unfamiliar with Mike McDonald, disguise. That is the scheme. It used to just be disguise the front, and then the coverages are kind of like, eh. But now, the same way he disguises his blitzes and does crazy stuff there, coming into the NFL, now he's really adapted and started to do that with the secondary too. And it's really scary because you have no idea what a single one of the 11 players on the defensive side of the ball are doing at all pre-snap. At all. Anthony Weaver was the defensive line coach. So at least, maybe he won't have the secondary stuff, but at least he is going to do crazy stuff up front. Crazy stuff up front.
Yep, it's going to be absurd.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot more to this defense in the sense of like the terminology, the things we've touched on it before. I do recommend you go watch the Seattle Seahawks video with actual Mike McDonald because that has probably our most in depth of this one. Mm-hmm. This is our third time talking about this.
Well, we had Minter.
This is our fourth. No, this is our fourth.
This is going to make it clear like how much. It's a good thing to have a McDonald disciple. It is.
Yeah.
Because that is the new wave, right? Denard Wilson with Tennessee. McDonald disciple. McDonald just became a head coach in Seattle. Obviously, he runs the McDonald team. Jesse Minter worked with McDonald at Michigan. He's with the Chargers, right? Zach Orr was, of course, a McDonald disciple. He was with the Ravens. Linebacker coach. He's the Ravens guy. And now, Anthony Weaver, the defensive line coach.
And this is 1 year after Mike McDonald gets hired.
Exactly. So, what happened with McDonald, right? McDonald became the head coach somewhere. Denard Wilson, the DB's coach, secondary coach, whatever, became a defensive coordinator. The assistant defensive coordinator became a defensive coordinator. And Zach Orr, the defensive line coach, became a defensive coordinator. And the guy that he worked with in college, his old assistant defensive coordinator, became a defensive coordinator too. So, yeah, I think you're picking from the right tree here.
Yes, absolutely. And I really hope it works out because if that defense can be anything near what it was with the Ravens, I mean, this team has defensive talent up the wazoo when healthy.
Yeah, when healthy. And that's the big question, but it does help having a scheme that is so diverse and, so confusing, right? Because that's the thing. You're going to see nose tackles dropping back into coverage, or at least that's what we saw with the Ravens last year. You're going to see linebackers making gap exchanges from across the formation with defensive ends. You're going to see some crazy stuff like that. And it's stuff that shouldn't work, but it always does. And it's because of how they coach it up, how they coach these players up to understand it, how they coach them up to approach it. It works so consistently. They run a lot of zone, right? But they mix up how they run it, and they mix up the blitzes up front. That's what I expect Weaver to do because, again, he was a defensive line coach. And then, in terms of base personnel, we're thinking 2-4, but it might be a 3-4 because the defensive line coach, we're not quite sure. It depends if they want to base out of nickel or base out of a base personnel. We're
Yep.
expecting 2-4 because we just think that that's their best personnel package, but they're going to run both. And the good thing with running a 2-4 or a 3-4 is those overhangs, you could do some crazy stuff with them. Because they're
Yes, you can.
hybrid players, you could have them drop back, you could have them blitzing, and they'll be just solid doing both. They run a lot of one high, that's why they run so much cover 3, but they'll mix it up, run some Tampa 2 at times. And then they'll mix up some, like, zone lock where they have some players in man coverage, other players in zone. Like, they really mix it up a lot of the time. It is a rarity to see pure man across the board, though. For the most part, there is going to be zones somewhere.
So let's start with this defensive line up front, and I'd really like to start with the edge rushers because that's where, when healthy, we are the strongest on this defense.
Yes.
Because wow, is it deep?
Mm-hmm.
And it's deep because last year we walked into a playoff game with fossils playing edge rusher for us, and we wanted to avoid that again. So you start with the starters, who are both hurt. They're both on the physically unable to perform list, and they're probably going to be hurt once the season starts. They're going to come back later on. But it's one of the best edge rushing duos in football in Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb. Jalen Phillips, I think, is the better of the two. He is, my God, when he is healthy, I mean, I think he's either at the top of a tier 2 or at the bottom of tier 1 when it comes to an edge rusher. Like, he is that good. Because I was really high on him coming out of his draft. He was my top defensive player in that draft. But because of those injury concerns, which unfortunately have shown up a bit in the NFL, he wasn't going top 10 or top wherever he should have gone. He's turned into an absolute stud for this Dolphins team. He was fantastic last year before his Achilles tear on the dreaded MetLife Field. Ban it. Do whatever you burn it. Get rid of the MetLife Field, please. Mm. And right next to him is Bradley Chubb. Again, he was a top 5 pick. And he wasn't like fantastic with Denver, right? Like he wasn't some stud. He showed flashes, things like that. But then he gets traded to the Dolphins. He's doing well, and then last season was the best season of his career. He was having a career year before, again, unfortunately, getting hurt with a lower body injury that had him out for the season and will have him out for the start of this season. So there are 2 fantastic players that will not be starting the season for the Dolphins. So who's behind them? Well, that would be Emmanuel Ogbah and 2 rookies.
Emmanuel Ogba's a good player.
Emmanuel Ogbah's a good player.
Yeah.
He is a good player. Happy he's back on the Dolphins. But then 2 rookies. And Chop Robinson, the first round pick, and Mohamed Kamara, a guy I really like. Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear what your takes on Chop are because, like, for me, I see him as a third down pass rushing specialist right now. He's not good against the run.
Here's where I stand, right? By the way, Chubb and Phillips, I didn't really speak much on them. I'm in complete agreement. Very technically sound. And I do want to say this really quick, and it's part of the reason I have optimism for both these young guys. I don't know if it's Joe Barry or Austin Clark that's really working with them. Austin Clark is the D-line coach. Joe Barry is the linebackers coach. But whoever it is working with the edge rushers has been cooking very clearly. And that gives me optimism for Chop and Mo Kamara, who are both like kind of raw players, especially Chop. Yeah, but you asked me for my thoughts on Chop. Best case scenario, to me, I'm afraid in his best case scenario, he is a third down specialist. And in the first round, that's what you're doing? Really?
I know it. Now, one thing to say about Chop.
So he has the speed, and the get-off is crazy. He doesn't work moves. He just runs around people.
Yes. Now,
and when he engages a block, he gets murdered.
Yes.
And that's not a formula. No NFL player has ever made a successful career out of that. Ever.
Now, can they develop him because of his athleticism? It's possible. Absolutely.
Possible.
You hope it can. And the other thing that has me somewhat, I still don't love the pick, but has me somewhat excited is the scheme that he's in. And, like, where's Anthony Weaver going to put him, right? Like, on any given blitz or formation, he's going to make him line him up as a middle linebacker. He's going to line him up across the field and loop around. Like, he has that, because that Chop's get off is absurd. Like, he comes in the league with one of the best get offs in the league. Like, yeah, absolutely.
And so his bend is great too. Like, he could bend around the edge.
Like, I feel like if he had gone to a team, like, say he went to the Seahawks, let's just hypothetically, and Mike McDonald had him, I feel like you would look at him, and even me would look at him and be like, Mike McDonald is going to scheme this guy open on a blitz, and a play is going to be over once the ball is snapped. You know what I mean? Like, he has that kind of potential in this scheme. We just have to see that this scheme works outside of Mike McDonald. We have to see it first. So,
Yeah.
but again, he is still third down pass rusher. I wouldn't have spent my 24th overall pick on that when we had other. This is a flawed football team. This is not some super team that had the luxury of making this pick.
But they act like they did.
But we did.
I mean, maybe there's a world where the get off is just that crazy, and he never engages blocks ever. But I just can't. Like, we've never seen it. We have never seen it. Is he that rare of an athlete with his get off and his speed and his bend around the edge that maybe he's the exception to the rule? Like, that's possible, I guess. But to me, I see him as a rotational guy who will make plays every now and then, and that is it. It does help he could drop back into coverage, though. He has experience doing that, and he's fine at that. And I think that helps the Anthony Weaver disguise stuff. And then
we
Mo
have to talk about Mo
Kamara.
Kamara.
Yeah.
Could we agree that, like, right now, he's
I like
probably
him more.
a higher floor player than
Yes.
top? Yeah.
I
completely agree.
But he also has a high ceiling, too. I think he's the better player. I don't like Shaw.
He actually reminds me a lot of the guy who just retired and Shaq Barrett. Like, that's what I see when I watch Kamara. And that's awesome. Like I thought he went way later than he probably should have. He's a really technically sound player while being athletic. He's got a nice bag of pass rush moves. He's the better player between the two right now, and I expect him to play above him for a little bit.
And then Agba is also fantastic, too.
Agba's a good player. I was surprised he was still a free agent. Luckily, he was when we brought him in.
Yeah. And then we move over to the interior defensive line. Again, we expect this to be a 2-4. So only 2 starters. I feel pretty comfortable saying that those 2 starters are Calais Campbell and Tier Tart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no. It's Calais Campbell and Zach Sealer.
Zach Sealer, you think? Oh, are you not big on Tart?
Oh, I like Tart. I think Zach Sealer's the better player. Zach Sealer's really good last year.
Oh, maybe Sealer's a guy that I'm not. Sealer is a guy I'm like, big guy. But I feel like Campbell is the big guy.
Sure, but he's a big guy, but he's also just like a good pass rusher. Like, he's just a really solid defensive tackle. He was with Christian Wilkins. He was the guy next to Christian Wilkins.
I mean, I just see 3 big guys. You know, like that's what I see. Like, this is the Patrick Seifert defensive line.
They're gonna one of them is gonna be on the field. I tell you.
Yeah. Like, I like the idea of you have Campbell next to, like, 350-pound Tier Tart, and that it's just, like, you can't run up the middle. Like, that was kind of my vision. But maybe they want the athleticism of a Sealer.
I mean, I'd be surprised, because Sealer is, like, DT1 on our depth chart. Like, that's the thing. Like they want Sealer starting.
Okay, well, I mean, you see Sealer differently than I'm not going to say I didn't like Sealer. Huh. Okay. Do you like Tier Tart? Are you anti-Tart?
No, I'm not anti-Tart. I think he's good. I think he's a good player. I was happy when we signed him. I was like, oh, damn, I like him. But
and, you know, they're deep, too. They have Deshaun Hand, who could sub in. Like, the fact is, Campbell, honestly, there's a world where Campbell might not be in the starter. Like, I think they just rotate.
They're all going to rotate, exactly. And that's what happens in this type of scheme anyway. Everybody's rotating every play and going to different spaces. Like, so Calais Campbell's going to rush off the edge sometimes. You know what I mean? Like,
for sure. Like that, dude. And Anthony Weaver is the defensive line coach, so he's going to do the same defensive line stuff: the rotation, having guys who are 350 pounds dropping back into coverage. Like, he's gonna do that stuff.
Absolutely.
And then they also have Benito Jones, Neville Gallimore. Like, they have guys, dude. Even Jonathan Harris, right? Like, they have guys that they could rotate between. Let's move over to the interior defense or interior linebackers.
Let's do it. All right. And this is the best interior linebacking group we've had in a while.
Yeah. It sucks that they don't have depth.
Yes, it does stink. However, I think Jordan Brooks is very underappreciated. And
he is. I just don't know how he is after injury.
Yes, absolutely. That's a worry to have. But, like, you take away that injury, very underappreciated player. He's a good linebacker, man. and he was really good with Seattle. I hope he's the same after injury. That would mean big things. And I was a huge fan of David Long in free agency last year. I thought his time with Tennessee was fantastic, especially that last season with them.
Yeah.
He wasn't, again, this kind of comes back to, there's a couple players on this team that weren't really utilized correctly by Vic Fangio last season. David Long was one of those people.
Yep.
I think he's going to be utilized really well in this scheme.
Yeah. They're going to blitz the guy. Both of these guys are going to blitz, and I'm excited to see it. Both of them are going to be used in coverage and have a lot of responsibility in coverage. They're going to do some nice stuff, I'm expecting, at least. But, I mean, in terms of depth, they have Anthony Walker.
They do.
And then that's really, I don't know if you feel differently.
No,
I know
I'm
Channing Tindall was a guy that they dedicated capital to.
Dedicated a third-round pick to him, and maybe, hey, this follows my philosophy of take a big, strong, athletic linebacker and develop him. Maybe they do that with Tindall.
Maybe.
I doubt it, but we'll see. And then Duke Riley is a good pass coverage linebacker, but not great against the run.
Mm-hmm. So then we move over to the secondary.
I like the secondary.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in agreement. It's a good one. Kendall Fuller is listed as their left corner. Jalen Ramsey's their right. Kader Kohou is the nickel. That's a nice trio, right?
That is a nice trio.
Fuller, it
Fuller's
sucks
an
he can't.
upgrade over Howard last year.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It sucks he can't go stride for stride with people, but they're not running man, so it's fine.
No.
I question if they're even going to do any of that like half zone, half man stuff because I don't think they have the personnel to.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what their plan is with Ramsey because he's been moving around. He's been getting moved around in camp. That was one of Ramsey's main concerns with Fangio last year was Fangio didn't let him cover their best guy. I expect them to be like, hey, Ramsey, go cover their best guy.
But what if they use him as their Kyle Hamilton?
I mean, that would be really sick. I think that would be cool.
Maybe that's why they're moving him around.
Maybe so. I think it'd be a little bit of a waste to not just have him cover their best.
But he's never been the best man guy, Jalen Ramsey. Or at least not since his time in Jacksonville. Right? He's always for a while he's been like a better zone guy, and now he's only older. I think there's a very real world where they don't do like this half man, half zone stuff that they used to do with the Ravens and McDonald, and they just stick purely to zone, disguised zone coverages. I think that's really what's going to go on here because I look at the personnel, it's zone guys like all the way, especially at their age. Like this is an older secondary, right? Totally. I don't think they want guys man on. Xavier Worthy and man on these faster receivers. Like, I just don't think that's what they want to do.
No, absolutely. It's just because they are moving Jalen Ramsey around. We'll see what they end up doing with that. Because Jalen Ramsey was very vocal about being able to do that last season and didn't get to do it. So we'll see if we make him happy or not. But I love Kader Kohou, Darth Kader, undrafted free agent stud. Yep. Just a really good nickel when he's playing, man. Yeah. Really competitive football player.
Mm-hmm. Then we look at the new safeties, Javon Holland and Jordan Poyer.
Javon
Holland's been there.
So good.
Yeah. Javon Holland's been there, and he's been great. And he's still young, man. Like, that's the thing, too. Javon Holland, who drafted 2021. Yeah, he could have a breakout, become, like, the best safety in the NFL. Like, that's really possible.
Absolutely.
Especially in this scheme. And then Jordan Poyer, he's older, but he still is a good zone guy. Like, he's very consistent.
Good zone box kind of safety.
Yeah, exactly. And then you got Marcus May, who could also do that. Yeah,
he can also do that. And Elijah Campbell isn't a well-known name, but when he's played for us as a depth piece, he's a good player at the safety spot. Mm-hmm. And I guess the other guys you can mention here, Cam Smith was a second-round pick last year. Mm-hmm. I liked his tape when he was at South Carolina. Apparently, he hasn't been all that great in camp, which is a little unfortunate, but I still kind of have hope for that. Nick Needham's a good backup slot guy, probably the best backup. If you're talking strictly backup slot in the league, Nick Needham, he can start for a lot of teams at the slot. Mm-hmm. And then you have to mention Ethan Bonner because he is one of the few white corners in the NFL. And he runs a 4 like Tyreek Hill said multiple times, Ethan Bonner's just as fast as I am. So he's here.
There we go. Rise up, quirked up white boys.
Why rise up?
So now we move over to defensive superlatives. Who do you have for defensive player of the year? This is a tough one.
This is a ridiculously tough one because it's hard to pick the best players on this defense because they're hurt, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the tough part here. I'm gonna go with. God, that's hard. I'm gonna go with a little bit of a left field one. I'm gonna go with Javon Holland.
So my thing, right? I was thinking Javon Holland a lot. I was, absolutely. Then I also started to think David Long, right? Do we expect a bounce back for him?
I would hope so.
Yeah, and then it's like Ramsey's older now, but if he's used as a Kyle Hamilton, how could you not?
Right, but we don't know if he's going to do that.
It seems that way.
It does seem that way a little bit, but he is playing a lot of outside, and he's just moving around like. No, we'll see. I don't know. I would love to kind of see how that works.
Mm-hmm. And then there's also the part of me that's just like, what if Kader Kohu takes another step up? Right. And then, like, Agbai, like, there's so many names. I'm going Ramsey because I'm expecting someone to play the Kyle Hamilton role. I am. And I don't think Ramsey is still, like, anywhere near the best corner in football. But if they're using him as this Kyle Hamilton guy, he's going to be one of the most impactful defenders in the league.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then defensive
rookie of the year.
Mm-hmm. I have Kamara.
Mine is Kamara too.
Yeah.
I think it's hard though, because there's a world where like Chop is getting schemed up on these blitzes, and maybe he doesn't play as much as Kamara, but he ends up with better statistics, right?
Maybe.
Like, there's a world where that happens.
And that's why I have him as my X factor, Chop.
Yes, that we have the same X factor. Very good.
Because like, hey, he could be this huge playmaker. He'll just do it as a rotational guy. I just don't think the return on investment will ever be there, but whatever. Special teams. Jason Sanders is good, right? He can nail some kicks.
Good kicker.
Deep range for sure. Jake Bailey
won the Cowboys game for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And he has like one game a year where it's like, oh my lord, infinite range, right? He's just feeling himself randomly. Then Jake Bailey, he's fine.
He's fine.
Right? Not great. He's fine, right? That's really all. And then in terms of returners, if they really want to, take the new kickoff rules to their next level, Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, they can. Tyreek, they will put out there sometimes. That's something they did last year when they were like, big games. They would do it. I'm expecting Barrios or Jeff Wilson, honestly.
Jeff Wilson. I think Malik Washington can do it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Devon Achane, they might put him back there.
Yeah, I could see.
Jalen Wright, they might be like, Jalen Wright, you're fast.
Mm-hmm.
Take it.
Yeah. Then we got, in terms of other special teamers, Cam Brown is their true special teams guy. That excites me. He's someone, former Giant, kind of a do-it-all, punt team, punt return, everything. So then other special teamers for me, Marcus May, Savon Ahmed, Durham Smythe, if he isn't the tight end one, or even if he is, I could see it. And if he is the tight end one, then Jonnu Smith, absolutely. Channing Tindall, and then Alec Ingold. All guys I think can absolutely contribute on special teams. I think Alec Ingold as potentially a 10th man, I really like, because you could pitch it to him. He could return the kick himself, and he could also block for people. That is the ideal 10th man.
Yeah.
So now we get over to the predictions. How are you feeling?
Do you want to? I want to hear what's your ceiling for this team?
I have 8 and 9.
The ceiling?
Oh, sorry. The floor is 8 and 9.
Whoa.
Well, yeah. The floor is 8 and 9. The ceiling, I have is 12 and 5.
Yeah, my ceiling is 13 and 4. My floor is also 8 and 9.
Okay, so there we go, right? That would have been a real change. Of the 12th team has a ceiling of 8 and 9. Yeah. So
what's your prediction?
My prediction, 10-6-1. I feel very adamant about a single tie on their schedule.
Mine's 10-7, second in the AFC East. So
yeah. Let's look at the schedule, and I see it one way and one way only. Right? Ties only happen early in the year, especially week 1. The Jags, I think, are this team that, for whatever reason, this game reeks of tie for me. It does. Because there will be a tie. Every season there's one. It's about predicting which one. Those ties happen early in the season. I feel like this is a game where it's like Trevor Lawrence, just got paid. Tua just got paid. Kind of, feeling it out type of thing here. It's mainly a gut thing, but I can absolutely see this game going that way.
Okay, I could see that. I feel like this is a pretty handed Dolphins win in my eyes. I think the offense can take it to this Jacksonville defense. Tyson Campbell is not covering Tyreek Hill.
Outside run game should be tough to set up because Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines Allen, right? That makes it tough. So now they have to rely more on the pass, and I think that passing game could be really dynamic, but I also think Jacksonville can be really dynamic against a defense that will be struggling to really grow and, learn this new scheme in week 1. So I think this could be a high-scoring game that eventually stalls in overtime and becomes a tie.
It could happen.
I know, it sounds really niche, but
No. It's okay.
I fell asleep, and the ghost of Don Shula showed up in my dreams and told me this is going to be a tie.
There you go. It has to be one now.
Yeah.
But then we move to Buffalo. I'm very adamant Buffalo beats us twice.
Yeah. The Buffalo always matches up well against you guys.
Yes.
That's the reality.
Now, it is in Miami. Now, is this different if this isn't a primetime game? Yes, because you're playing the Miami Heat. Now you're playing. It's still hot. It's Miami. It's humid, but it's nighttime, and the sun is not plastering the away side of the field. So I think this. I feel pretty adamant about Buffalo beating us twice.
Yeah, and again, they just match up well against you. That's the reality. They always play well against you guys. Then master becomes the learner type of stuff here. Seattle playing against, Anthony Weaver and his defense. How do we feel here?
I think this is, again, it comes down to new team, learning new scheme. I think this Dolphins team can take some pretty good advantage of that.
I understand that. I also don't feel like... The thing is, too, though, the Dolphins also have the new scheme.
Right, absolutely. So it's really... but then it comes down to his offense, and who do I trust a little more? I kind of trust Mike McDaniel to...
I also don't know how Ryan Grubb matches up against these defenses.
Exactly.
For me,
that's the weird part here. It's Ryan
Grubb. Then primetime football, Tennessee.
Will Levis beat us in a minute and a half last year. We hope it doesn't happen again.
Miami beats the teams they're better.
Yeah, Miami beats the team they're better than, except for last year. And
that was the one game that they didn't. Does that happen again?
That was Will Levis' effect.
Yeah, I don't think they underestimate them.
Especially because, again, new defense. Hey, that's Mike McDonald disciple and Mike McDonald disciple.
Yeah.
And actual Mike McDonald in the span of 3 weeks. So.
Yeah. So then we go to the Patriots. They, once again, beat the teams they're better than.
Yes, and I feel confident that they'll win both.
Although Christian Gonzalez staying healthy, he could strap up Tyreek Hill. It's just Jalen Waddle goes nuclear then.
Yep.
Bye week, then they play against the Colts.
I feel very good about this Dolphins team beating the Colts off of.
I think it's the scheme, right? They could exploit that cover 3 all day.
I mean, Tua's licking his chops looking at that cover 3 every single play.
Yeah. And then Arizona, I could see Arizona giving them problems.
Me too, but again, comes down to Tua and this offense should dismantle
and
this.
Who guards Tyreek?
Sean Murphy Bunting, of course. No, who's the rookie they got? The fast guy that you're like adding.
Oh, Max Melton?
Max Melton has to do it.
Yeah, I mean, he could go stride for stride. It's just about when Tyreek decides to go right or left.
At any point.
Yeah, exactly. And then Jalen Waddle becomes a problem on the other side, right? Dolphins at Bills. We agree Bills win that. Then at the Rams, primetime television.
I went with the Dolphins here. I think this is...
I feel good about the Rams.
That's all right.
I think Stafford is just going to throw the piss missiles right in between the weak spot of zones. And then the really tough thing, too, is the choice routes, how they're going to match up against this defensive scheme. I feel like the scheme... It is purely about who is on the same page more. The defenders of Miami or the offensive players of the Rams.
Right.
And I also don't. I think that the Rams might be able to give some problems to the Dolphins' offense here. I think Ernest Jones as a zone defender on the middle of the field makes the middle of the field passing game tough. I think they have the ability to really throw wrinkles in this, or throw some wrenches in this Dolphins offense, just enough.
Totally fine. Totally fine to think that. And then we move to the Raiders. I feel adamant that coming off a bye, the Raiders win this game. This feels like if we're getting to the later part of the season, the Raiders are this defensive-minded,
the one upset
team.
The one upset for Miami
bound to happen.
would be
but it's
the
not only
Raiders.
that, like this, like Max Crosby's not gonna let himself get sealed across the edge. Right?
Christian Wilkins' revenge game goes crazy.
Christian Wilkins' revenge, like this defensive line is gonna eat.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna stop the run game, and then the secondary might maybe not match up well individually against these guys, but like this is a really good defense.
They kind of do individually though. I feel like Nate Hobbs has that speed. Nate Hobbs has the speed. They got other fast corners there.
Jack Jones.
Jack Jones has speed. Like they have the speed. And the only thing is too though, soft zone heavy. I feel like McDaniel will kind of pick that apart.
He can, but it's also Patrick Graham's also very adaptable as a
That's true.
seed, and he will make changes and he will put some bumps in there. It feels like coming off a bye, getting later into the season, this Raiders team is scratching and clawing for a playoffs, like to be in the playoff race right now. It feels like an Antonio Pierce win.
Yeah. Dolphins once again beat the shit out of the Patriots.
Correct.
Green Bay, I think, beats them.
In Lambeau, Week 13 in December.
And this is that absolute. Oh yeah, this is 100% a win for Green Bay.
Yeah,
100%. It was that, and I just feel like this is one of the games where like, listen, the Dolphins don't play against many like certified playoff contenders on the schedule, like certified like playoff teams 100%. But we know how the Dolphins play against those teams when they do play them. I feel like the Packers are one of those teams.
Yes.
And then the Jets, I also think if the season is going well for the Jets up to this point, the Jets kill them. It's just about is the season going that well for them?
I have them splitting, so.
I just feel like the Dolphins crumble under pressure. That's a legitimate thing. When they play against the bigger opponents, they crumble. If the Jets are like a 9-win team at this point, 10-win team, like I think the Dolphins just get caught shitting themselves, like legitimately.
Right.
Then the Texans definitely clobber them.
Yeah, Texans coming off a bye.
This is a tough stretch for them because then they play against San Fran again, and San Fran.
I would go San Fran. I think these two teams, which we'll see when we get to I think these two teams are very similar as of right now.
But I don't think that San Fran knows how to beat good teams. The Dolphins don't. And this 1, 2, 3, 4 game stretch is just that simple. These are good playoff, like Super Bowl contending teams, we expect. And because of that, the Dolphins shit themselves. That's what happened last year whenever they played against these other good teams. Like, it really is that simple. This is why we tackle culture. This is why. Because of games like this. Because of patterns like this. That don't really come down to player or scheme. It is just straight up, what types of teams do these teams struggle against? From a culture standpoint. And then
after that, you go to a ridiculously tough game against the Browns in Cleveland in the winter.
I like this Dolphins run defense a little bit. Like, I feel like by now, Bradley Chubb.
It's a tough game.
But I feel like now Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips are back. It's tough to run the ball. Deshaun Watson has to win the game for them. Against this complex defense, this late in the season, I feel good about Miami. I do.
That's fine by me. I'm thinking Cleveland, cold, good defense.
Fair.
That does not.
Fair.
You know, that's tough. I would still lean Miami. It's just tough.
And then I guess it comes down to Denzel Ward being able to match up on Tyreek.
Yeah.
That's the big thing here. And then the Jets, again, I think if the Jets are good, then they beat them. If the Jets are bad, then they lose to them. Like, this is the most simple analysis I've ever had to do. But that's the truth. If the Jets season is going well, then they beat them. If it isn't, they lose to them. I'm sorry I made it that simple, but it is that elementary.
No, it's totally fine. No, like I hear what you're saying. Absolutely, man.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it.
Yeah. Go ahead. Wrap it up.
All right. Well, thank you all for watching this installment of the 2024 preseason power rankings. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave a like and to subscribe to the channel. Please remember that the evens come out on my account, the odds come out on Pat's, which is in this link in the description. And thank you, everybody, for watching.